I've answered the question whether the Took and Lefebvre orders are valid in the affirmative. And so now we come to the Old Catholic orders. What should we think of the Old Catholic orders? Well, the immediate thing that the traditionalists tell us is that the Old Catholic orders are different from ours. Lefebvre and Took were Catholic bishops. The Old Catholics are non-Catholics. They're schismatics from over 100 years back, splitting off in the Diocese of Utrecht. Archbishop Lefebvre and Bishop Took were both originally Catholic bishops, but so were the founders of the Old Catholic lines. I discovered more recently that actually amongst what we would consider here with the Old Catholics, there are now two lines. There's the Utrecht line and there's the Duarte Costa line coming out of Brazil. Both originate with Catholic bishops. We could look at the Orthodox, which the Church has always considered valid. They started with Catholic bishops and went into schism. They've been out for 1,000 years almost. So, what principle should we apply to the Old Catholic bishops? The same one we apply to Lefebvre, to Took, and the Orthodox. Have they preserved the rites substantially Catholic with the proper intention until now? With the Old Catholics, and this applies also to the Duarte Costa line, I'll consider them both together, we must consider what was their intention. Well, there's an interesting book called Bishops at Large. You can go on Amazon and get a copy if you want. It's fascinating reading. But the main point, and if you look on the Old Catholic websites, the Duarte Costa websites, even maybe possibly some of the Orthodox ones, in fact, some of the traditionalist websites, you will find that they want one thing. They want to demonstrate that the Catholic Church holds their orders as valid. I'm talking about the Catholic Church. I'm talking about the Church in Rome. Now, this keeps us good until 68, when the church that usurped Rome, by which everyone considered Catholic, changed their rite of ordination to a new rite, an invalid rite. But up until 1968, we can take a look at the Old Catholics, with a possible very, very few exceptions. They retained their rites in a manner that would be considered valid by the Catholic Church. Same is true of Duarte Costa. Some of them had begun translating into the vernacular. That does not invalidate. Okay, what do the words say? Are they the Catholic words? That's the question. In fact, we can probably go into the early to mid-70s, because the original reaction of many of the old Catholics was to become more traditional in opposition to the Novus Ordo. Because people are leaving the Novus Ordo, they're looking for a Latin Mass. Well, we can do that. Now, you get more recently, 80s, 90s, and past 2000, some have branched on. They accept the Novus Ordo now, the new rite of ordination, and so we'd have to be more careful there. It'd be the same thing as if the Lefebvrites decided to adopt the new rite of ordination. All of a sudden we'd say, up to X date, when they adopted the new rite, everything's great. But afterwards, they're now using an invalid rite. Okay? But in general, we can consider the Orthodox, the Old Catholic, the Duarte Costa line orders as just as valid as traditionalist orders, because they attempted to maintain validity. It's kind of interesting. I was doing some research on a bishop who'd ordained a friend of mine, a Palmarian bishop. Now, we know about the Took-Palmar line. I didn't discuss that. I understand their problems, because eventually Clemente wrote his own ordination rite, which I don't know whether it's valid or not. But the original bishops, who eventually split from Clemente, were validly consecrated. Because if we don't consider the Took-Palmar consecrations as valid, why should we consider the Took traditionalist consecrations as valid, or any of his others, the Old Catholics, whatever? And so I go on this bishop's website, and here's a picture of a Palmarian bishop concelebrating the liturgy, or whatever they call it in the conciliar church, with John Paul II and receiving the kiss of peace from John Paul II, thus implying that John Paul II considered his orders as valid. And this is, see, John Paul II considers our orders valid. Well, that means absolutely nothing to me. John Paul II conferred orders with an invalid right from 1968, clear up until his death. So I don't consider his opinion on the validity of orders as worth much. So we come back to the old Catholic and Duarte Costa lines, and for the most part they're valid. There are exceptions, and we do have to be careful. Some of them, are now ordaining women, including some of the Palmar lines. Sinead O'Connell was ordained in the Palmar line, obviously invalid. Makes one wonder about that bishop as well. In any case, we have to be careful with some of the lines because they have introduced invalid rites of ordination. They've ordained women, and there's insanity going on there. But those who have maintained the rites of the sacraments substantially unchanged are keeping validity. And in fact, this is one thing that got to me way back. I was trying to sort things out in the early 1980s. Okay, Lefebvre was not going to ordain me. I could see that was true. I ran into obstacles at the Took line. That would be a whole video unto itself, which I might do some other time. But I could see I'm not getting ordained in the Took line, and just as well. And so I looked at the old Catholics for a minute. My mom asked me, well, why are you looking at them? I said, well, what is the difference between the old Catholics and the traditionalists? Now I got to thinking about it. Now, we're forbidden to go to the old Catholics and the Orthodox for the sacraments. I was raised that way. But what's the difference between the old Catholics and the traditionalists? I couldn't come up with one. That's where I eventually got to the point of we shouldn't go to the traditionalists either for the sacraments. But that's a different video. Because what we're talking about here is validity, not legitimacy. If we talked about legitimacy, they're all illegitimate. Some of them are in good faith. Some of them real nice guys. I've met some of them in the last few years. Of course, I've known traditionalist priests and bishops. They're really nice guys. But when you get down to it, they are not legitimate priests and bishops. And this is the problem. Validity is not enough.